Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? And welcome to the Binge Worthy Podcast. This is the bonus edition. A few movies have come out, and I didn't want to, prolong it. So we have a couple that we're going to be talking about tonight. The United States versus Billie Holiday, Antebellum, and His Eyes. What's the third one?
Behind her eyes.
Behind her eyes. I couldn't. It was a couple things that I thought I was looking at something else. That's why I asked you, like, is this what I was supposed to be looking at? Because that was horrible. But the show that Behind Her Eyes. So those are the three that we'll be talking about tonight. And I made the mistake of watching the United States versus Billie Holiday and Antebellum back to back,
Which I
and
just did.
That was crazy for Looney activity to be doing, and it was. I was angry. Like I didn't want to. I didn't leave out the house today. I was like, because I see a white person, I'm going off, just off the GP status of it all. And it just wasn't. It was a lot. Because I throughout this year, especially in starting this podcast from the first season and now this one, I don't have. I have to watch it without reading on it, without doing any research beforehand, because I have a bad habit of watching something for the first time and looking at all the technical aspects and not actually being able to enjoy it. And when I look at it for the first time, those that's what's gonna come up, and that's what happened. Not so much with the Billie Holiday story, but more so with Antebellum. I knew what was happening as because I was looking at those details and watching it because I thought for some reason I don't know why I thought Antebellum was a TV show, and it's a movie. So we can start with. Let's start with let me get the images queued up. And so we just not going to be the extended version. So we gonna get in here and get out. So let's start with this one.
How'd you feel about it?
Um, First of all, the ending was I don't do a lot of cussing, but it was like a clusterfuck for me because it was you had to really. I
So
mean,
hold on, real
go ahead.
quick. Spoiler alert. So if you have not seen
This
Behind
ain't the
Her
TV
Eyes on
show.
Netflix,
Mm-mm.
I your co-host G Oliver, I would advise you
Yeah, to tune
to
out and
yeah.
watch this later.
This will be up. You can come back and get our thoughts now. But if you have not yet seen this show, um, just stop right now. Get
Yeah,
out of here
get out of
because we
here.
about to start. We about to talk about this for real. So if you have not seen this show, back out now.
Back out. Get
um.
out while you can.
All right.
But this
Continue, sir.
show, for me, I was like, what the hell does George have me watching? And I just watched this today. And as I was watching it, um, I see why you liked it because it's a short series. But also, I was like, okay, so we gonna watch this love triangle unfold, and somehow
Mm-hmm.
the the husband is gonna get with his secretary, and also the secretary is gonna get with his wife. Like I was like, this about to be a whole like, not realizing actually that's that's kind of not
Yeah,
what
because the
happened,
shit really
but
don't hit the fan until like the final episode, like
yeah.
maybe halfway through the second to last episode.
But
Like it
it starts to
just
get
comes out of
complicated.
nowhere. It comes
Yeah,
like there's an element that comes out of literally like just out of nowhere.
right, right.
And it was really I thought that it was really well done in the sense that there was evidence of that
Yeah.
kind of peppered throughout the entire series.
Mm,
Um and then when you finally by the time you really kind of figure out what it is, it just takes on a whole
whole
like you
new.
down the rabbit hole now,
And
and shit about to get
but see
deeper.
that it happened for me in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that was the second episode where no, it was the first episode when they meet each other. The wife and the secretary meet each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just something about the way they bumped into each other and how the wife responded. It was weird to me. It just was weird. And for me, that's just me looking at stuff as a director, as a scene designer, as a
Mm-hmm.
actor myself. Like I always that's why people don't like going to the movies with me because I'm looking at all I don't even notice the storyline because I'm looking at all of those
Yeah.
like the reason they bumped into each other. So I'm asking myself those questions, ahead of time. But
And I mean, I think it was purposefully done. Like
right.
I just assumed, like I was like, oh, the wife definitely know who she is. This didn't happen on accident or happenstance. Like she definitely like set this
Mm,
up. And the vibe from the wife was already low key stalkerish, even in the first episode, right? Like it was
yeah,
clearly a lot of weird shit going on.
clearly.
Um, how did you feel? So my thing was this. Um, a lot of times, I watch trailers, I watch stuff that's coming out, and because we have so many offerings now, I don't feel the need like I gotta watch everything.
Right,
So
right.
I remember seeing the preview, and I was initially like, I don't want to see. I'm not really feeling that, because like of the whole dynamic, the whole racial dynamic of. I was like, okay, so you could tell from the previews that this was about a single black woman who's getting ready to have an affair with a married man. Like you got that from
Yeah.
the trailer, and I was just like, all right, I don't even know how I feel about this. I was gonna skip it, and then I saw people starting to post about it, and
Hmm.
that's when I typically will start to pay attention to stuff. If I see people, not advocating, but like comments that make it clear that this might be something worth watching, right? Like
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people were really good about not spoiling it, but just indicating that, oh, this might be like a sleeper, like it might actually be good. So that's what initially got me into it.
Yeah.
And I was like on the fence because like on the one, like it has so many elements that I normally find problematic, right? So
Mm.
like so many elements, and then the way that it ended, which is essentially a body swap, like right, like it's essentially
Yeah,
a
but it
white
was a body
person,
swap of a body swap of a body swap.
but at the end of the day, this white person had taken over the body of a black person, and I was like,
Yeah.
I like typically like it was. I wanted to talk about this simply because I wanted to see how people were feeling about that. Like,
But you
you
got to
know,
give the whole scenario. A white man took over a white woman's body, who then took
who then
over
took over a
a
black
white
woman's
woman's
body,
body, and then
also that
married
he
the
could
man
stay
that
with
the
the
black
man that
woman.
he loves.
I was. First of all,
And the husband has no idea. The husband
no
has
idea
no
what you
idea.
doing.
So that was that whole thing, because that's a problematic plot device, right? White people taking over black bodies, right?
Right,
That's
right,
a
right.
problematic plot device. I mean, we just saw it with Soul, right? Like, we just saw that plot device really get
With Soul,
dissected and taken it. Yeah, with Soul, the animated, the Pixar Soul.
it was a black man. I mean, a
So
black person taking
there
over the
was
body.
there was
Maybe I didn't watch that good
well,
enough
oh, maybe not. So
because I
like
don't remember that one.
he like the little soul that has the
Mm-hmm.
voice of a white woman spends like a 2/3 of the movie
Okay,
in
in
the
a
black
black
man's
body.
body.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So
Okay,
right, while
yeah.
the black man is in a cat. So we saw that get taken out. We already have issues with
But I don't think that
interracial
was as
relationships
drastic
on
as
screen.
this or and Get Out. I don't think it was
Well,
as
that's the point that I wanted to
yeah.
talk about, because this is a plot device that on the surface is usually problematic for us as black folk. And yet
Right.
I see a lot of people really indicating that they enjoyed this particular film, which I also enjoyed. I was willing, because of the story, I was like willing to overlook that this kind of ended in a really, really fucked up way that I don't really approve of movies ending like this. I mean,
I think because this was easier to swallow because they didn't seek her out. They didn't seek her out to take her
mhm.
body, and they didn't. It wasn't like a
You don't think
conscious
she?
decision.
You don't think that was her plan from the jump? I
No,
think she.
this lady
Yeah, I
was
think.
sleeping with her husband, and she found
No,
out,
hold on.
and she said, "No, I got
The
you."
sleeping part came later. Like she had bumped into her and started building a
No, but
relationship
she
with
had
her
already.
before she slept with her husband.
Yeah, but prior to, no, when you at the beginning, but still at the beginning of the movie, by the
Mhm.
time they bumped into each other, she already knew that they had hooked up. That's why
They
she.
had
That's why
hooked up.
she. Yeah, but that's also why That's why she became friends with her and try to.
Yeah, like she clearly knew that there was a like okay, there's a woman in my husband's office that my
Yeah, but
husband is
remember they
attracted
met at
to.
the bar. They met
They
at the
ran into
bar.
each other at the bar. They had like a moment. That's not really hooking
No, I'm
up.
not. No, I'm not saying sleep, but I'm saying she knew about them knowing each other from the
Oh
beginning.
yeah, she was his secretary.
No, not even that they was the secretary. Like I think she realized that they. I think she was doing that. So the whole idea, so the whole plot twist in this movie is astral projection, and it's
Yeah.
something that I've always wanted to do, but I've never trusted anybody who say they know how to do it to be able to put me in that type of trance. Like I'm not doing that. I don't trust you. But the whole idea is this astral projection. So we don't find out that she's able to do this until like halfway through or like a little past halfway
Oh
point.
yeah, it
So
was like
I
the second to last episode.
right, so I suspect, and I think it was a little hint to it that she was aware. She was aware that they was like they were sleeping together and their
Mhm.
conversations because she was in the room when
She
it
was
was
in the room
happening.
when it happened.
But
You
I
find that out
suspect
later, yeah.
right, but I suspect that she knew because she knew who she was when she
Mhm.
bumped into her. She knew who she
No,
was when
she
she
didn't know.
bumped into her.
No,
But that was
I'm not arguing with you about that. I'm saying
right.
all I'm saying is that I think that that was her goal from
Mhm.
Jump Street. Like once, because like the narrative was really
I don't know. I don't think that that was not because she was black, because
no, it
she
had
was
nothing to do with
interested
her
in her
being black. No,
man.
it's not anything doing. No, it doesn't have anything to do with her being black.
But I don't think she
It
was
was
trying to take over her
because this
body
is.
though. I think that
I
only
think she
happened,
was like
but I
she
don't think
literally
that
set her
happened
up
until
to
he fell in
learn.
love with her. I
She
think that's what.
literally set her up from Jump Street to learn how, like, under the guise of helping her with her.
Mhm.
So the main character has a what is it called, night terrors,
Right.
and under the guise of trying to help her overcome her night terrors, she like low key taught her how to astral project. Like that's what she did.
But
Like how
that
she
part,
taught her
but
how to
yeah,
control herself
right.
in the night terror,
Yeah.
which is a natural progression in the setup of this story to astral projection, because the main character is never actually told or taught how to astral project, but as she learns how to control her night terrors, astral projection becomes one of the things that she just immediately kind of like it eventually happens like by accident, and
We
then
got
she
Mama
starts to stick
Meekins
with it.
watching. How you doing, Miss
Hey, Miss
Meekins?
Meekins.
But I understand what
So
you're saying, but her initial connection with the young lady was because she wanted her to hate him. She wanted her to initially hate her husband. I don't
mhm.
think it was her intention to take over her body.
You think
But
it was like a last ditch effort? Like that was the last.
yeah, but at the same time, what is crazy, the lady who bumped into her, the wife, was
Mhm.
already the man at that point.
Yeah.
The man had
Yeah.
already taken over her body at that point.
Yeah, but you don't find that out until literally the end,
But that's
the
what I'm
very end
speaking.
of the
I'm
show.
speaking about from the back. So I'm going from the end to the beginning. That's how I'm looking at it in terms of like the overall why all this stuff was happening. So I think him taking over her body, which is weird how they was able to take over each other's body because that's not something that you are taught in astral projection that you're able to
No,
take over
I don't know
somebody's
anything about
body.
astral projection. In the show,
it's like a higher
She
form of
identified it
meditation.
as something that she always could do
Yeah.
naturally. And then he was like
Mm-hmm.
reading and researching on it. It was actually his idea for them to try the whole body swap in
The
the first
switch.
place.
Right.
And the
Right.
whole time he was like, nah, bitch, I'm about to take your life. Like, I'm about to take your
Right.
whole
So
life.
he set her up that way.
He set
So
her up.
we can't even look at her. So we never really meet the wife
No, I'm not
until the
talking about
very
the wife.
end.
When I'm talking
No,
about
I'm,
the
I'm
wife,
saying,
I'm talking about like the whole show. The wife is actually this
yeah,
guy.
but I don't think it was her intention from the very beginning. Well, I'm not. I'm gonna call it him. I don't
Right.
think it was
Okay.
his intention
I
from the very beginning to take over the body until until he totally lost
okay, I
his
can
husband.
I can
It's
dig it.
weird.
That
It's, I'm
I
I'm I'm
can
trying to figure out how to. I don't want to mess up anybody's pronouns. I don't want the trans community or any intersexual individual to come after me. But
well, if they
we
come
never
after you
really
for this, they haven't seen the show.
right. We never really meet the wife. We've until the very end in that scene where
We see her as a child,
right,
basically.
and he
Yeah.
takes over the body. That's the only time in the flashbacks.
In the
That's the only
flashbacks,
time
right.
we meet the wife. But in terms of the current moving of
So
the, we never really we're talking we're seeing the guy who took over the body the whole time. So I
real
think he
quick,
was content as the white woman
uh-huh.
until this black woman came in and
And he's
right,
about to lose his
that's why
right.
she was trying to turn the secretary against the husband.
But
So
it was
she would hate him.
crazy, yo. Like the husband had no idea,
None. He still don't.
none
He still don't.
whatsoever. He
He still don't.
ends the show ends. She has basically like this black woman's life is gone, gone.
And if she'd
Like,
have listened to her friend, she wouldn't have been in that predicament. Because she told
oh,
him, leave them alone.
absolutely, leave him alone.
Leave them alone.
I
And
mean,
out of
clearly, like they was crazy.
curiosity, right, she was going 100 for this white woman
Mhm.
and ended up a victim herself. And it was so crazy. Like, and I think there has to be a second, like something else, a part two to this,
No,
because the
it
son, it
ain't.
has to be because the son knows her son in this knows that that's not his mother. I think he has a feeling like this not my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is going to come to even if it's not. It's probably going. The next storyline is going to be him as adult, you know,
I
going
don't think so.
backwards,
I
and
think it's gonna be a one. I think it's a one-off.
um, I stuff like this, like you can't just leave it. That's like a cliffhanger.
They didn't
You
leave
know?
it on a cliffhanger. Like the bad guy won. Like y'all be having so
Yeah,
like
I'm not.
some
I
people
don't care
really
about
have an issue with that.
no. I don't have an issue
Like he
with
won.
winning, but I just think the story needs to continue on, and there's room for this story to continue on, and a different with starting with the son. Like somehow the son finds out what happened, or learns how to do it, or catches the mom doing it, or whatever. But this
I don't know, man. Let
mini
me tell you,
series was
if the husband went that long and never found out why, like he essentially knew what the son knew, right? Like he fell out of love with his wife because she changed,
oh
and
hold on.
his
Femi says he thinks
he
that
thinks
it
it's a
was a
one
one
off
off
too.
too.
I mean, like first of all, it's based on a novel. I don't think there's a sequel
Yeah.
to the novel. I can check it out. But when I was reading up on it, I
I'm
didn't
not
see
saying that
that there was a
I'm not
sequel.
saying that there's a
I
sequel
know
coming.
that.
I'm saying it's just room to continue
Yeah,
this in a
that's
different way.
possible. But like, I think
Not
that it's
even
safe
with
to
the same
assume that
people.
if the husband never figured it out, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah,
But
like
the
the
son
son
already you
clearly
could
knows that
tell
something is up, but I
right.
doubt that, like it's astral projection. Like who would ever like figure that out, honestly, unless you
But
was literally brought into it.
they've added some stuff to what astral projection you're capable of doing because I learned it through me studying meditation and
Mhm.
it's supposed to be a real thing that you can do, but it never said that because they played it as spirits, so this spirit was able to then get into that body
Mhm.
and take it over, and that was just
Yeah, I
it
don't
was
know enough
just
about
weird
astral
having
projection,
this
man.
unfold. But by the
Right, Femi.
time
Right, Femi. He said it. Sometimes shit just ends fucked up. It just does.
But I'm a person that just want to see the story go into a different direction. I want the son to then learn, and then it goes into maybe another possible direction.
So
Like
for
he
all of our
runs into
audience
somebody.
members who may be watching for the first time,
I don't like short
Nate
stories.
does not like short stories
I
at
don't.
all.
I
He wants
don't.
shit with 25 episodes per season and 6 or 7, 8 seasons. Um, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So they
So
both
yeah.
noticed the change in the personality, but
But I think the
again, I was like,
son
the
is the
husband ain't
more
figure it
pro.
out in all that time. So
Yeah, well, he didn't know. He didn't know it's different with him dealing with her because he was dealing with her as a therapist or a psychiatrist. That's where he was dealing with her. So the
well,
fact that she
yeah.
could astral project, that wasn't even on his radar. But I think the son would be the one that's curious enough to like really pay attention to her. Like mood is one thing. Adults understand mood. Children understand when shit ain't right. This ain't
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
And that little
he
boy,
initially,
like
like,
she
he
was
immediately recognized that
right.
something wasn't right.
Soon as he saw her, came to the
But I
door.
mean, she's a whole different person now. So even the father, even the son's father, recognized that
Yeah,
her
but I think he
attitude
just
was
thought it was
off.
just this
Yeah.
mood, and
So
she was crazy to me from in the first place. But if we I know we got a couple people watching now, but what we're doing tonight is a bonus episode. And we may do this a couple more times when certain new projects come up. But these were definitely
for Nate in
something.
distress, because that's really why we here. Nate was in distress. He
No,
watched
it
two. He
wasn't.
watched two films back to back that probably shouldn't have been watched back to back.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I didn't even. It wasn't even a rhyme or reason because
Mm-hmm.
Billie Holiday had just came out, and then I just
You just happened to watch the
Antebellum.
two.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
and Antebellum just popped up, and I was like, let me, because
Yeah,
I'm gonna
because
tell you, it's
Antebellum's been out for a while, but
right,
it did just come out on Hulu.
right.
So
But
it's
just
like
knowing
right in
how
there in
I
that
was
Black
raised,
Stories category for
being
it was in the
raised
Black Stories
in
category for Black History Month.
right, being raised in predominantly white atmospheres, environments. I have a certain like feeling towards things that especially if a title called Antebellum, that only means one damn thing.
Right.
And I can't bring myself to be in that space, especially when we're under this pandemic still and things are still a little wild. I'm trying to manage my reactions to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a hyper emotional person. I just like I have a lot of passion in me towards certain issues, and race and culture is definitely at the top of that list. So it's still certain movies that I still haven't seen. 12 Years a
As it should
Slave.
be.
I
As it
still
should
haven't
be.
seen Fruitville Station. It's certain things that I mentally I know I can't watch.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said I'm in terms of the things that we're watching now, I don't do research on it before I watch it. I'll just watch it. Like
Mm-hmm.
this, I did not know what the hell. I was like, what the hell is he got me watching? Because it started off real slow in English, like real
Mm-hmm.
European, like that movie started off a little slow and then it picks up speed. But
So, but before we move on, you were okay with the ending? Like, and I don't mean okay as in like from the story perspective, but just like I really like
with him
this,
going off with this man,
this
it's
was
a
the
happily ever
conversation I
after.
wanted to have. No, the fact that a black person lost their self.
For
Like this
some
white
reason,
person goes off, and
for
I'm just wondering,
for
like,
some reason, just
where do
like you
we draw
mentioned
the line?
Soul. I mean, but in this case, um,
So you got
it,
soul.
but see, I even with Soul, you had to explain it to me because out after me watching Soul, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that was that person, the ghost at that point, even though the voice was of a white girl, I
Mm-hmm.
think the soul had no identity up until this point. That was the whole point.
Well,
There was no
that point was
identity to
made
it.
in the movie, but then there's the point that you're trying to make for story purposes, and then it's just like the realization that hey, if you're gonna put him in a black man, if you're gonna put this soul in a black person's body, you could have just cast a black person to be the soul.
Yeah, but it
Right. And
was
I mean,
no.
I didn't like I love Soul. I thought it was a great film.
Yeah,
But
but I think
I know a lot of people took issue with that. And then apparently there's a long history of black characters being the stars of like animated films and going through the majority I didn't even realize that. Going through the majority of the film as an animal instead of just
What is
their
the
black self.
animation? Like animation, or especially children based
Mm-hmm.
animation, is based on the ideas of fables and oh, I can't even think of the other word, folk tales. And
Mm-hmm.
most times in fables, the animal is the prominent character. That's what they use animals to tell stories and to, deliver meaning. So
Yeah.
I think in situations like Soul, that's us reaching. Maybe they should have casted a black person
Mm-hmm.
if it was going to be done that way, but I think the whole point was souls don't have a race or culture until they are physically in a body. So she didn't become black. She wasn't black or white. She became a spirit that got into the body. But that's a whole metaphysical level and all that. But in terms of like comparing it to Get Out, that's a problem because they
Okay.
were actually taking white bodies and looking for black people and putting themselves into black bodies. That's a problem. That is problematic, and that's not something that happens in real life. So that is your imagination saying, I want to put this white person into this, reincarnate them into a black body. That's problematic. In this case, it was, I think, not justified, because the whole idea of the guy being this person from when that woman met him,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I don't know. I don't. I can't call it for this. Get Out. I can definitely call it. I can definitely say
Mm-hmm.
that was wrong. But for Soul in this, I'm on the fence because I don't think from the beginning of this story that whoever was in that body of the wife, I don't think it was their intention to capture that black woman until the husband fell in love with her and
Mm-hmm.
was actually leaving her.
Agreed.
He decided to leave his wife. That's
Right.
when it was. So I can't. And she was fucking his man. So well, I did say that right. He was fucking his man. So uh, that then became the problem.
All right. All
Uh,
right.
what was the last statement? He said, Femi says that series was nuts.
Yeah,
It
that
was.
shit was
It
wild.
was. It was. When I say, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to start screening this shit before George gives suggestions because this I didn't need that. So watching the Billie Holiday story, Antebellum, and then this, and if I'd have watched all of them in the same day, I wouldn't be doing this right
Well,
now.
okay. I mean, but I mean, I felt like this one was appropriate with the other two that
Right.
we wanted to discuss simply because of that ending.
Right.
And
Right.
I was
Right.
finding it, I just found it interesting, where we take our issues and we draw that line. No one seemed to have a problem with the way that this one ended, which is fine. I was just juxtaposing it with some of the other things that we
Yeah.
have taken issue with,
Yeah.
right?
But I get
Um,
what you're saying, but I think this is more going to be an issue that is, and I'm surprised it hasn't started happening yet, where they're talking about LGBTQ, because that's problematic for him to pretend to be this woman and be in this woman's body, knowing that
maybe
he's
like
a
in
man on
how
the
it's,
inside.
I think that one of the things that I liked
It's
about the
not
series is that
problematic, but
none of it felt like a gimmick, right?
it didn't. That's
It
why
felt
it's
like it
hard
was
to
a very
call it.
natural part of the story. Like
Right.
we understand it. He didn't. It wasn't that he wanted to be a woman. He wanted her life,
Right,
right?
right.
Like
And that's why I said
was
it was hard to
wealthy.
call.
She had the perfect guy. She was wealthy. She was comfortable.
Right, right.
And then you find out later on that he really, even though he was really nice to, well, he wasn't really nice to her. He was really nice to her from what we saw. But then
But
there was that scene where his sister was talking about him and how he was just like this horrible, like bottom feeding person all around. So it is just an
right.
evil. So it established the story. It did a really good job of just establishing him
And
as
I
like
just think
a
that's just
really
because
evil
that's how
person
mental.
who
But that's
may
how.
have only been getting close to her because of potential
Right,
benefit.
right.
And then through this unique experience that he gets to become a part of, he just, it didn't seem like he just like, oh, I want to be a woman so bad, and like I'm gonna use
Yeah,
this
because he was.
magical
I think
mystical
he was
thing
content
to
being the
become
wife.
right.
He was
And
content being
then
the wife. But
right,
then when he learned that the husband was going to turn himself in, that would have implicated him. So that
Mm-hmm.
probably would have took them back to the crazy house or
Right.
to the mental facility, whatever. But I think him realizing that, it was like, oh no, I'm not going to lose. I got to get back to
Right.
my state, my
And I think
wealth.
sometimes when the story makes sense from a story perspective, like you could have put any race in those roles, and the
Yeah,
story still works.
yeah. That's
And
why I
I
said
think
this
that
one
that's
was
what
hard to
sets this
call.
apart from
Yeah,
some of the other stuff that people have taken issue with.
yeah.
Um, you know, Soul is just one film, but there was like an article that came out that talked about all of like the recent animated films that had a black
Mm,
lead in it that were eventually at some point in the movie turned into an
animal
animal.
or
So there
something
was like
else.
Will Smith in Spies in Disguise, who spent most of the film as a pigeon. Apparently, there was
Yeah,
Soul. There was
there was the
Brother Bear, The Princess and the Frog.
yeah.
It just seems like that's the go to when it's
But
a
I
black animated character.
Yeah, but I think we have to, one, get into animation and create non-animal characters, but at the same time, sometimes this stuff is for children. It's not for
Yeah,
us.
I think sometimes it goes a little a
Yeah,
little
it's
too
not
far as well.
right. We shouldn't be
Um,
sitting out enjoying the
and
Princess
it
and the
wasn't
Frog.
it like it didn't bother me until I read that article and realized that there was a pattern. Right,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the pattern that bothered me, and I know that there are plenty of like animation films with white characters where that's not a plot device, like turning me into
But
an
is it a
animal, or
device?
it seems like it is.
I mean, cause
I
some
mean, it does. I mean, it kind of does. I mean, like you got the Princess and the Frog. They spend most of the main character spends most of that film
I think
as a
we be
frog.
reaching. I think we be really reaching when it
I mean, but
comes
I'm saying
to.
like one film people taking an issue with a reach.
But
Five
it's
films
a
when we already
animation.
don't have a whole lot of like. It's not like we have an equal amount of animated films that feature black characters as many as we do white.
But
So
but
five
if you look
films is
at
actually a lot. And if
if
all
you,
of them use this same plot device of turning the black character into an animal for the majority of the film, like
I
that
think
might
that
be
part of it is
indicative. It
reaching.
might be indicative of an issue.
I
That's
think
all
it's
I'm saying.
reaching. I think it's reaching because a lot of this stuff is not for us. So the fact that we are watching this and then
But I'm saying, yo,
dissecting
like
it,
even if it's
it's
for
not
children,
like.
what's the benefit to watching to like saying, "Oh, I'm about to sit down as a black child and watch a film
But a child
with
is
black
not doing
people
that.
in it with
These
a."
children are not doing that though. The
What do you mean
adults
they're
are
not doing
doing
that?
that.
Doing what?
Children aren't
No,
doing that.
you didn't let me finish. What benefit is to a child to sit down and it's like out of all these cartoons that I normally watch, now I'm gonna get to watch one with people who look like me, and the main character spends the majority of the film as a cat or a fish or a dog
And
or a
I
horse.
see how us as adults are recognizing that, and it's no it's I don't think it's an issue for us to see it that way, but we're then putting that on to children, and children aren't
No, I'm
thinking
not
that
putting
way.
it on to them. I'm being conscious of like what
Not
that says
you,
to them.
but I think that argument often is from an adult standpoint. It's not from a child's perspective
Well, a
because
child
children are
wouldn't
need to look
necessarily
at those
consciously
things.
understand that there's a problem here.
I mean, once we
Only
become
an adult would
adults,
look at that and say,
right. And
that's
that's
the
when it
issue.
becomes an issue. We recognize that looking back that none of the cartoons, like growing up, the only black cartoons that we saw was the Mammy and Tom and Jerry, and we only saw her feet and her legs. So we get that, or things that were supposed to be representationally black. We see that it wasn't. It was a disparity in that, but I think we can't always look at these things and see problematic things if it's not meant for us. Like it was meant for children. And you can see that through a lot of educational things. They often use animals, like in fables, to tell the story versus an adult telling the story. Because a child's attention is going to pay attention to an animal talking more
Mhm.
than an adult talking. So I think sometimes when we look at these things, we put on the problematic overtones and undertones to it. So I mean, but I do understand as an adult, I'm watching these cartoons like, why is the black character few and far in between.
Mhm.
Or but again, switch the well, and that the problem I see in that is because more cartoons are now being marketed to adults versus to children. So
Mhm.
that's why we're noticing it more. But I think we need to just start making more cartoons for by us for us. Instead of us trying to make all of the stuff that we make diverse or want far extreme, we need to start making things that are for our children to watch. We got a lot of black animators. They need to start working on
Do we?
some of these projects. Yeah, there's a lot of black animators, but I think they're working on white series or
Mhm.
white shows. So some of them need to come over, or we need to create, like we're doing with the STEM programs, and pushing them to do more cartooning. As I think I'm starting to see in some of these trade schools, but
Mhm.
just make more stuff for us. But yeah, typically animals are used in cartoons as in fables.
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot of white men and women getting turned into animals though.
Yeah, but
I just don't, yo. Like it's different. Like I see cartoons with animals as characters all the time.
and they're voiced over by
Like
white
I think the
people.
fact that we don't question it on that other side is indicative of the fact that it just doesn't happen that often for it to be considered a pattern. Like, yeah, animals play prominently in children's shows, but we're
Yeah,
not talking about the presence of animals or talking animals.
but
We're
I think
talking
it's the
about a
storyline.
specific plot device where, for some reason, this black person got to be turned into
But that's
this animal.
reaching though. It's reaching
I don't know if it's reaching. Like how
because you gotta.
like here's the
If the
thing.
story, if the
Let's think
story,
about all
hold
of
on.
this
But if
in
the
most.
storyline itself is problematic, then I think that's when we hear it. But in like the case of Soul, he was trying to get back to Earth.
I mean, they
Like he
all
was just
have a
trying to.
story, Nate. They all have a story, and I'm not
Yeah, but
pointing out
sometimes the
Soul
story lets
as
us
a particular.
know.
I'm not pointing out Soul as just like the main culprit. I'm saying that someone identified that there's a pattern that seems to only exist in black films or films that feature black leads.
But
That was the connection
but
that
I
was made, of the
but you
pattern
have
that
to.
seemed to
But
emerge.
see, with especially with animated movies that are marketed to children
Mhm.
versus adults or are family friendly.
They're all marketed to children, dude. Like
No, no,
we're not talking about like Sausage Party. I'm talking about your regular
but I'm
Pixar,
making it.
Disney
But no,
related
I'm making a
films.
real because some of those movies
Soul is
are
no more
still
marketed towards adults than Frozen
no. But
was.
I think that's more of a family friendly movie though.
They're
Uh,
all family friendly movies. We're talking about Disney
no,
and Pixar. That's all they make is family friendly movies.
yeah, but this like Soul had themes in it that were relatable to adults and to children. That's what
All of
family
them do.
friendly.
That's what a family film
No,
is.
no,
You
but
have
I think a
something that
lot of
relates
them.
to everybody.
I'm these films to me are a lot of them are geared towards children. And a lot of them are family friendly. Like you can watch it with your family, but a lot of these movies are geared towards children. So we can't look at that through our 30 some year old eyes or 40 some year old eyes. We
Somebody
can't.
needs to, because
No,
if you're treating the children unequally,
no,
like white
but
children
in
don't have to sit there
cartoons,
and watch a ton of cartoons where white people are turned into animals, Nate.
but
And if that was
often,
okay, then we
but
would see it.
that's harmful to continue to say that because it's not because in most cartoons they're not they don't normally have a race. Now in cartoons like in Princess and the Frog and now in Soul, these characters were black. They were black people.
Yeah,
But I think in terms of like specifically for Soul, the spirit did not have a race. The
that's
spirit did
fine.
not have a it didn't have a makeup yet. It didn't go through that process. And I think the movie showed that like this was not a human being at this first point, so it did not have a race. But the black man somehow sent the ghost down in his body, and vice. I think sometimes we reach too far in these situations, and we make stuff about race that shouldn't be made about race, and then the things that are blatantly problematic, we let that get by because we were entertained by it. So I think sometimes we gotta pick out battles when it comes to race and identity and representation. Pick out battles because not everything, especially in the idea of animation, that's meant for children. We can enjoy it with our children, but it's not meant for us to sit down and just watch Soul. Like what for me when I watched Soul when we reported on it, I made sure that was the day that I asked my goddaughter to come over and we watched them because I didn't. It's not that I didn't feel comfortable, but I think it was. I would enjoy it watching. I would want to see the child's reaction versus my own reaction to it because I'm an adult now and I
Speaking
don't
of, my
necessarily.
kids watch Soul like once. I've seen it like 3, 4 times. So
And because I think this one was
I,
I think Soul was a story. I think the
I mean,
story
yo,
in
like
it
let's be
was
honest, yo. All of the like most of the Pixar movies are really good movies.
yeah,
Inside Out was good. Soul is good. The Toy Story movies are good. Like you don't have to be a child to enjoy those films.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All of them, as Femi said, all of them have lessons for all ages.
But I'm
So
telling you, fables. The idea of what a fable is, it's normally a story that uses animals to tell a story. So I think that's the part that has me a little confused when it deals with animation.
and no, there's a lot of fables that use animals to tell a story.
Well, that's
Not
fables.
really a whole lot of fables where a human being is turned into an animal to tell the story.
Uh,
That's all. Look,
maybe.
that's the only. That's all I'm saying. And I'm with it. I'm cool. But someone did point out the fact that this is kind of a pattern. This
Well,
seems
y'all
to only
keep,
exist for one race. Like,
but y'all keep going out and watching a movie, so maybe y'all should stop
well,
going out and watch the
yeah,
movie.
I mean, we.
You don't
That's
have to. You don't have to.
yeah, but we kind of do. The only
You
person who would
don't.
say that is someone who doesn't have kids.
Yeah, but if you're trying to teach your
The only if
children,
you have children, then you know that you can't really just. I mean, you can. I mean, I don't know if that's really gonna make you an effective parent if you just gonna tell them, "Oh
but
no, you can't watch
cartoons
any of
don't.
this. You can't watch
Yeah,
any of this."
yeah,
Like,
but I mean,
like that's kind of cruel, especially considering that children are not conscious of the things that we're conscious of, but we should be having these conversations because they're not conscious enough to have these conversations.
yeah,
They're not yet aware of the world that exists around them.
yeah,
So
but sometimes
we need to be the
putting
ones to
that.
have that conversation in order to inform how
But
these
I
like
and
what's
I
okay and what's
and
not.
I've and as an educator, I'm very mindful of how I introduce those issues to children because sometimes their mind is not there, and that simply me implanting that thought in their mind now makes them distrusting and hesitant to anything that looks like this. And they should understand when something is racist or something is problematic or toxic. They should be able to, even at their age, learn how to do that. But I think sometimes we reach in, and that's just my perspective in cartoons.
So what you want to
It's
talk
just
about
mine.
next? You want to talk about Billy or you want to talk about Antebellum?
So I'm a say Billy for last, but
All right.
Antebellum, like this the first TV series we talked about. This is a movie. I knew I knew from the beginning
Mm-hmm.
that this was off, and I hadn't read these three things that we're reviewing tonight. I didn't look up on. I just knew Billie Holiday's story, but this one I didn't do any research on. I just watched it, but I knew kind of when the moment the phone started ringing. I knew something was off. I just knew something was off.
The phone started ringing.
Yeah, so at some point the movie starts out with them being slaves.
Yeah.
And then somehow but even before the phone because how they changed from
Present. Right. Yeah.
well it was all present, but this
They changed
switched
from the slave
when she
setting to
woke
the
up.
contemporary
At
setting.
some point she woke
Right.
up.
And then they make it
But the
like
phone
do
started
that. You
ringing.
realize what's happening.
But that was kind of I knew for sure something was wrong because in the beginning when some of the slaves were getting off, they had brought another group of slaves in. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, these slaves are real modern. Like these are modern looking slaves in the way they
Mm-hmm.
were talking, the way that they were not so much dressed, but just their appearance.
Well,
I
I
was
figured it
like,
out. I figured it out as soon as I saw them. Um, as soon as I saw the flag go up. As soon as I
oh
saw the
yeah, well yeah,
Confederate flag go up,
right,
because you wouldn't have seen a Confederate flag swinging from a plantation
yeah,
during that time. Even
right.
though, and like even
It was a lot of hints
even if
though.
you were with the even if like you were your plantation was close to the war, right? Like flags back then were like they weren't mass producing them, right? Like there was probably like like a handful of flags that existed that they
Right.
were. Yeah, you wouldn't have seen one just hanging on a plantation where everybody's just like everything is up, like everything is going on. Um, so there was that. I thought I was like, okay, I was like, that seems off. And
Yeah.
then it
There
wasn't
was a
even,
lot
and
of
then
stuff that was
and then the
pointing.
overseer said Negro, and I was like, wait,
Yeah.
Negro, like,
But it was
hold on,
obvious
sir.
things like that. But sometimes in some of these newer slave movement movies, there are slip ups like that, little tiny slip ups. But
Yeah.
this had too many modern
No, this one, I
aspects
think
to it.
intentionally, like there was peppered throughout. They were like, if you were paying attention, if you were paying close enough attention, like the first couple that we see in the very beginning, look like they had tried to run away. She's wearing like a gold cross.
Right,
Like what
right.
slave would have had that
But
back
see,
then?
I
Like,
didn't. I saw that, but I didn't. It didn't dawn on me until he
yeah.
found
So
it
like
in
I saw
the
that and
block.
I was like, whoa, time out.
Right.
um,
It was too many, but I was
so I
again
was
when I look at films, I'm looking at set design, I'm looking at costume,
yeah.
and I just saw like even with the razor, that was a pole, that was a metal pole, that wouldn't have been a metal
On
pole at
the
that
flag
time,
that they were raising up.
right? Even not
Yeah.
right, the flag
I
itself, but
mean,
the metal pole that it was on, like
when I get back and thought
the
about it, I was
can,
like, well, you can, if you look closely enough, like you can tell that the uniforms aren't all as if, like, their boots were like
yeah,
modern. Like there was like stuff
but
that you can't
but
recreate.
but in a lot of slave films, and I've seen a couple different ones, you may have one or two of those mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was just like blatant, like back to back to back to back. And I was like, without even knowing what I was watching, just basically going off of what you and Jay spoke about last week,
Mm-hmm.
about it, which made me watch it. Was like, okay, I heard them talk about this. Let me watch that. But it was just too many. Like they got everything wrong. What the hell? But when she was in that cabin, the way she was walking on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
mama, she was going over
Yeah.
things. I was like, okay, she trying hard not to make this floor creak, but this is weird. And it was just too many things that didn't add up. Like when they were putting together the big tent, and
Well,
I was
even
like,
yeah.
that tent wouldn't have been. That's some
Right.
modern canvas that they're
That's a little
using,
modern, right? Like
right? Like
even
this is too.
one of the
They
things that
making too
caught
many
me was like
mistakes.
I was like, wait, I was like, yo, like so there was like the cabin sat on brick, like there were
Yeah,
like brick, almost like
risers.
risers, right?
Yeah,
And I was like, I'm pretty sure that existed, but back then in certain aspects, but that looks really like it looked like if you've ever been to like a museum
yeah,
where it's like an outdoor type of thing and it's like
yeah.
old, like it gave off that
It
type
was
of
too modern. Everything was too clean though
yeah.
for it to be slave. It was everything was too clean. Even
Mhm.
like it was just everything was too
It was
uh
polished,
but it
but then
looked
they
like they
don't.
was it was looked like they were
And
trying
then
to recreate stuff,
yeah, and
but
then
in
on
a
top of
modern
it, there
way.
was some things that were like pretty obvious, like them burning the cotton, right? Like
But see,
you know what I'm saying? Like I was like, oh, okay, so
but it was
that was
sort of
one of the
like this.
clues for me too. I was like, okay, because they
Yeah,
don't really have any use for cotton other than the fact that they want these niggas to pick cotton
right.
to fit the
But it
aesthetic,
was it
but
was
they
it
don't have
was
nothing to do with this cotton no more. Like,
right. But it was certain. It was the storyline up until that point was it certain things would have made sense.
Mm.
because somebody took over this land. But then when it, like you said, when the couple was running away, the it these things did not add, it just didn't add up. And
Mm.
it was too, you would, some, especially when it's white produced slave movies, they try to be so authentic that they don't look at the reality of what things would have looked like. And
Mm.
that's what was, not even the dialogue, but just a lot of the the spectacle things did not add up to me. And I was like,
So
they,
I was
this is,
I didn't care for this movie that much. So like for
I
y'all
like
watching,
I
like it's a
like the
movie
shift in
about
it.
it's basically Get Out meets The Village. Oh, what was that M Night Shyamalan movie? Was it called The Village?
Oh, you lost me
Uh,
at that name.
yeah. What was it called? I think it was called The Village.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, you find out that even that these are people reenacting the past,
Right,
and that this is not a slave movie as so much as it's a sadistic movie about some people who have built their own little plantation and then
right.
kidnap black folk,
On
and and
the
and that's
idea
why
of this
I was
movie,
deeply
I
offended by this.
liked.
I was deeply offended by this film.
Well, so once I caught it,
That would never happen in real life.
well, we don't know because people
I'm fairly
disappear.
certain. I'm fairly certain. I'm pretty sure. Like people disappear all the time. They ain't disappearing into no motherfucking slave recreation. That's
I
bullshit.
mean, but we say that, but what is this whole sexual abduction thing that goes on where people stealing people and selling them into prostitution? That's just a version of this story. So
Bruh.
it
She was
wasn't
sleeping next to
I
her
wanted,
so-called slave master.
right, I
Your throat
wanted to
would have
just,
been cut.
yeah,
Like
but
I was just offended.
you gotta be in
I
that
don't think black people in
predicament.
2021 going for no shit like that.
It's
You
a
just
lot
don't.
of it's a
Like it's
lot
not like
of
they would like yo like you snatch somebody to take them into the slave trade and you keep them isolated, you keep them locked up, um the being by yourself. But yo, like it looked like it was just as many black people on that joint as there was white people. Like
yeah, but
and
again,
like imagine 60 black people in that situation and we all sitting there like, okay, we just gonna go along.
yeah, but when it's like you capturing somebody out of their sleep and they wake up and they in this space and they don't know where they are. I'm not saying that any of us wouldn't revolt, but I'm saying this was the reason I liked the movie is because it turned a lot of thoughts that we had. Like I couldn't have been a slave, and I think it played with that idea of us as these citizens in this new world that we're in currently. We always say that, but if you're put in that position and you're abducted
No,
and put into slavery, you don't know what you would do in that
I know
moment.
what I would do.
Okay. And
And
you
I
would
think
have
that's
got what them other people would have got.
I think that's what most black people would have done.
And
Like
and it's not
like
in the movie we see them.
I didn't
The
find
mo-
anything about that thing believable and in the slightest at
well,
all.
it's not. I don't think we see, and that's us watching these movies. It's a movie. Now, movies do depict how people really feel because somebody created this story, and where did that story come from? But I
Mhm.
think I purposely went into this look. I wanted to just look at the movie. Now, because of all of the stuff that was wrong in a natural slave movie, I was like, okay, this shit is something ain't right here. And when I
Mhm.
heard the phone ringing in the when she was in the cabin, that's how I knew, okay, this is something else about to happen. It wasn't until after she woke up in what is the modern world that I started looking at this differently. And I started making comparisons to people that we learn about in history books versus uh, the people that are out. So the idea of what racism was then compared to what it is now. And it was just a lot of stuff that that added up to me because that I could understand that. I know what it is to be in an interview with somebody and they're racist and they're speaking to me in a way that I'm not a black person sitting here listening to them talking or them debating me as a black person. I've been in those situations. So that made sense to me. I'm not gonna say I love the story, but I liked how the movie unfolded.
I love how it ended.
Well, I mean, we all that is what many of us would
My
say
movie, that
we
would have
would
happened in
do.
the first 5 minutes, and it would have been everybody involved, and that would have roll credits.
Yeah, yeah, you can say that,
Yeah, I am.
but
I'm not
I
have to say
think
it. I'm saying it.
no, but I'm saying, well, for the mind that you have right now, I think would have. uh so I'll say the one thing that agitated me to hell about this movie is her fixation with that fucking making a phone call. That pissed me off so much because they came back to the cabin. Like, get the hell out of there. Like, keep going.
But
Keep
I
keep
think that I
going.
think so. I too was frustrated and was like looking at that, but then I thought about how the movie opened, and it seemed to me that they had tried to run a
Right.
couple times. You
Right.
know what I
So
mean?
that's
Like
how the
this
movie
wasn't the
opens
first
up.
time. Like so, I think you know what I'm saying. Like when if you've tried to run, like if you've tried to make a run for it twice,
Right.
once, twice, or whatever. You know,
Right.
maybe that was the first time. Maybe it was like between the three or four of them that was like they were like the ones who run the interaction between her and the guy that I guess owned her.
Yeah.
It seemed as though his whole kind of fixation on loyalty. It feel like it may not have been her first time trying to make a run for it,
Well,
right?
no, no. At the beginning, she was the reason that the other. I think the three of them were trying to escape
Yeah.
because he said to her, he. That's why he branded her
Mm-hmm.
because she was one of the ones that tried to escape. It's
Yeah.
just that
So
they caught them. Because
if
remember,
you've
at
done
some
that a couple
point,
times and you don't succeed, and now you have access to a phone where you could call 911, you could call
but they
out for
were out
help.
in the field. They
That
had the
might.
phone out in the
Mhm.
field. Keep going, like keep
Well,
keep
I think.
going.
Well, so she tried to use it in the field, and she couldn't get service. And
So keep going.
if you don't know exactly where you at,
I
yeah,
would have
I
just
don't
kept
know if I'd have
going.
went back. I don't know if I would have gone back to the cabin
Right.
either. I think I would have, like you said, I would have probably kept running and just kept trying every so
Yeah,
often.
just find that signal,
Um,
baby. Just get that
but
was the
she
only thing
knew,
that annoyed me.
but she did know. She knew for a fact
That
that
it
she could
worked.
get service
Yeah.
near the cabin because of when the guy got the phone call. So she knew she could get service there. I
Right.
mean, I don't know if that's the decision I would have made at that point, but understanding that they had no idea physically where they were at the time, how
Yeah.
far they were from any known civilization or anything like that. Uh,
Rihanna says I didn't see the whole thing, but it was insane for them to see the airplane flying and then go back to picking. Well, because they knew. I think we're looking at this as we
yeah,
didn't
I mean,
know
they
where they
knew what was
were.
going on. Like,
Right,
yeah,
but it
they
was
knew.
still like a I think a lot of them were in shock still that they were in this space, and
But that's
especially her
bullshit.
character.
Ain't no shot.
Yeah, I mean,
Ain't
but
no
it's
shot.
you saying that
We'd have
now,
been going to war day one. I
but
mean,
it's
yo, like, I mean, get it. Listen, yo, like, I think it's an interesting idea. I don't,
yeah.
I'm not, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Like,
I
there
think
were
Femi
conditions,
saying
and
nah,
things
bro.
that exist. There were conditions and there were things that existed in the 1600s when they were snatching up Africans that do not exist today. It
Yeah,
just do not exist today. Like we know how to do shit now. We like snatching someone and taking them across the seas, when most of them did not speak the same language, came from very different tribal backgrounds, did not understand some of these things like guns and other things that would have to them may have even looked like sorcery. You know
so
what I'm saying? Like
Femi says it's
snatching us
not
up
like
today.
they were transported back into time. I get what you're saying. So my natural indication would be implication would be to fight back, but just understand what shock does to somebody, like in the moment. So if you just walking down the street in blind day, somebody pull a gun out and say, give me, like, our indication, like, ain't nobody taking my shit, like
Oh no,
that.
no,
You
no!
could say
I
that in
feel you.
theory, but in the
Okay, you
moment
can have me as a
you sitting
slave
there
for
like,
5-6 days while I get through the shock of I can't believe this is happening to me, and then it's chitty chitty bang bang. Somebody got to go.
yeah, but
Somebody got to go.
I don't think that they were there like, I don't think she was there that long. I don't think she was there. I don't think this was months that she was
I
there. I
don't know,
think this
dude. Her
was,
hair was like drastically different. You
I
know what I'm
think she
saying?
just
And
had,
not
I
and
think,
like I felt like what we saw in the modern day one before she got kidnapped was maybe longer than what it would have been.
no,
I
I
don't know.
think she
I
just,
don't know
I
how
think she
long.
had it up and she just braided
The
it
truth
down.
is, they don't really go into that. I don't know how long she was gone, but here's what I do realize: I like they were continuously rotating people in. So
Yeah,
like she may not have been there for a while, but then there would theoretically there would have been other people who were there
the,
before her, and then we
the
saw
right,
the fresh batch come in.
right. Just like the one young lady, like, that got there, the young lady that ended up being pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I knew. I was like, "This some shit right here," because her acting was too, like, it was like you put somebody from Baltimore in 1987,
Yeah,
1887.
yeah.
So you could tell the difference, but it was, but see, fears took over, and when fear takes over, you either flight or fight, and I think they
Yeah, yo,
just,
but black people we fight.
yeah, but
Come
you
on,
really
yo.
don't. I'm not saying we would all
I
be.
hear
I'm
all
not.
that you talking, and I'm like, ain't
Yeah,
no
but
way, ain't
we
no way.
saying that, but until you're in that situation, and I think we can really put to use people who get put into sex work, like forced into sex work. No, nobody will want to do that. Nobody doesn't not want to fight back. But when you're in a situation and you feel like, look, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know who to trust. I don't know, you know, this guy got a gun over me. Like, it was real bullets in that gun. He really shot that lady in her back that was
Mhm,
running,
mhm.
and then dragged her by her neck. Like, so I'm not saying either way. I'm not saying what I would do or what I wouldn't do, but um, self-preservation, he says, Femi says, and we're gonna have to get Femi on the show. He said black woman hair be drastically different the following.
Right.
I didn't say that. Clearly that
No,
was
I was
Femi.
saying I thought it looked like in her hair that it had gotten longer, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
but I
I
mean,
I don't know. Y'all could be right. I find that really really difficult to
but people
swallow as a
fought.
concept.
Yeah, but it's not a concept. People fought back then, but they lost their life fighting back.
Mm-hmm.
We hear the heroic tale of Nat Turner, but he ended up losing his life and being cut into a billion pieces because
Mm-hmm.
of it. So it's not that we would not fight back, and you don't know how many times these people had tried to fight back. But it just, the idea of today somebody snatching me up and drugging me and then putting me on, I wake up and I'm on a plantation, that would be jarring even to me. I'm a try to find a way to get off of that, or as they did, but you don't know how that would then, you don't know what the reaction to that to be. You will get shot. I mean, he punched that man in the back with the butt of that gun. Like, it was just jarring to see it. But I like the juxtaposition of the the modern side of this story, of showing how she was captured, one, but
Mm-hmm.
also uh they specifically chose people who were speaking out.
No,
They
they didn't.
they,
No, they
they,
didn't. The
they
woman told
specifically
her,
chose people.
no, the woman told her, I knew you were going to be a problem. I never wanted you, but you pissed my father off so much that he
Mm-hmm.
made me going. I usually choose people, and she didn't. She chose people that people would forget. She chose people that people wasn't really checking for.
No, it
And
wasn't.
that,
It
and
wasn't whether
she, the
people.
main character, was the the
Yeah, but
one that set apart.
these were all people who would seemingly, it looked like this from some of the people that you would see, there would be people that would speak out. I'm not saying all of them were like her, but they specifically chose people and for whatever rhyme or reason, but it was just weird looking at the fact
Yeah,
that
the
they
whole
took
movie was
people.
weird. It was weird as
But
fuck.
I liked the setup of the movie. I liked how it was, the movie overlapped and it took us from what we thought was a time gone by to the present, and it just was, it just was an interesting story to tell, and I liked, I just liked, I liked this, the setup of the movie. I really did. The storyline, I maybe have to watch it again to really hear the storyline, but I was looking at everything spectacle,
Mhm.
and the continuity of everything, and it just made sense. And I've really like all the things was happening, everything that was happening made sense, but it didn't make sense at the same time.
Right.
So everything was that was unfolding, it was just weird to me. It was just weird, but it was a smart movie in how they laid it out, like the framework of it and the scene. So
I thought it was pretty predictable. Um, I I just thought the concept was outlandish, and I'm wondering if, let us know how y'all felt in the comments. If you've seen this film, because
Femi
I know
says
it didn't seem.
not all black people,
Yeah, I
George.
know.
You're
Like I
using
read that.
yourself as the norm. You're not the norm.
So I mean, I'm not
First of
saying
all,
that
he would have been in a
everybody.
house, Femi. He
I'm
wouldn't have
not saying that
been.
well, they didn't really have no houses. Like that
But
was
it
the thing.
didn't.
Like everybody had their cabin. I ain't see no big house over there.
Well, they had the big
um,
house. That's the steps he was coming down. But I don't think it was. I don't think it was set up the way we would normally see a
mhm.
slave narrative or a slave movie
Yeah,
done. I think this was straight punishment. Like I want to punish you.
I thought it was I thought it was I thought it was pretty predictable. Um, it seemed a lot going on. It was just shock value. Like even the ending, as much as I like enjoyed that ending, I was like, yeah, this is it's just a lot of shock value. And I remember this movie coming out, and like I remember thinking that this was going to be like a thing, and then it kind of fizzled. I don't know how well it did in the box office, but I know there wasn't a whole lot of commentary going on around it.
It's just been out a
Um,
little over a year. If
I'm
I'm
talking about. I'm
correct.
talking about when it came out. I remember
Okay.
when it came out, and I remember kind of being surprised that it wasn't. Um, there wasn't like it didn't seem to make that big of a splash. Uh,
I think because I think the anticipation for it was the thought of it being just another slave movie, and so many black people are against slave movies
mhm.
because they're tired of seeing it.
Yeah,
But
and that could have been it because that was probably right around the time where everybody was like, "Yeah, I'm done with the whole slave shit. Like, I'm done."
I think we need to stop anticipating because many of those movies, if you look at them, they all tell a different perspective. A lot of them are from the perspective of sympathizers, of 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 people who of people who sympathize with black people, but then you also see it from the perspective of individuals that like this one, where it was a total, you know, not quite a Nat Turner revolt, but it shows it from a different space. It shows us from a modern aspect, looking in back into that moment. Like, what would happen if, we've all said that. What would happen if slavery happened today? Who would we be, and what would you do? And I think these people showed us nothing would change. Our reaction to it would probably, we know more stuff, but physically, nothing probably would change. We would have to, you know, outsmart them again or figure things out. But these people were strictly into, like, it was war reenaction going on, and it was this idea of the antebellum South rising again. Like, it was just, it was weird. And
And it all took place like inside of a Civil War reenactment museum camp site.
right, right. And the crazy thing is, whenever I go to museums like that. I think the last time I went on that is a trip that was somebody up here was given to see Nat Turner plantation, the plantation he died on, he was killed on actually. And I remember this every time I've ever gone to that, even since a child, I would just be like watching, like, what if they have this land for a reason? Like, what if they bring it back? Like, what if they just what? And I'm always in awe at like what would happen? What would our actions be? We can say, oh yeah, we gonna shut it down, but what will we actually
I
do?
think we would absolutely shut it down.
Okay,
It's my perspective
okay.
on it.
So
Yeah,
slavery would end a lot sooner than
I
what
don't
it
think
did before.
slavery would ever get off it. I don't even think it could get off the ground in 2021. Like I don't even think white people want that smoke.
I don't think the way that it happened, it could ever happen. But they've definitely shown us in our economic system, in our educational system, in our healthcare system, in our justice system, political system, that it's possible and that they can still do it if they wanted to. We just saw that in the last 4 years of Trump. They can do it if they want to. And sometimes for the
Now that,
pursuit
sir,
of
that,
money
sir,
and
is a
greed,
reach. That, sir, is a reach.
it's not a reach.
It's a
Look at your
very,
school,
very,
sir. You
very much a
you
reach. Like you're not gonna blame my school if that's what you was getting ready to say on
no
Trump. These schools have been hard. These schools have been pretty bad for
no.
a
I
while
didn't
now,
blame.
and it's
No,
been
I didn't
declining.
blame.
Yeah, I thought you were getting ready
No,
to say school, but
no,
what
I
were you getting
didn't.
ready to say? Look at what
I said, look at our environment. Look at the environment that we're in.
our environment has never been up to what we would like it to be. It's not based on. It's not. That's not based on any one person.
What are
There's
you
a
looking
myriad of
at? Like, what are
factors. There's a
you?
myriad of factors that
And
play
they
into
all
that,
stem
and
from. They all
do
stem
stem.
from them taking us
All of them
and
stem from
keeping
slavery.
slavery going.
But that
We
don't mean
went
that they
from
can
slavery
physically.
to
That
Jim
don't mean that
Crow
they can
to.
physically just turn around and put us in bondage again. And you should be ashamed of yourself for thinking that actually they could do that to
But
the
they've
people
been
you
doing
grew
it
up to.
already. It's been happening. It just changed over time what it actually looked like.
That's
It's
a
not.
very interesting perspective, and you're welcome to have
And,
it. I
and, and I,
disagree.
I am going to continue to have it because that is still a form of
Go
slavery.
right
If
on
if
ahead,
we
brother.
want to admit to it or not, we're still in a form of slavery. We're
We're not talking
still in
about
a
a
form
form
of
of
it.
slavery, though. We're
That's what I'm
talking about
talking
this
about.
film, which
That's what
is
you're
it,
talking about. But that's what I was referring to.
so now we talking about forms of slavery. All right.
I mean, that's
Billie
that's what
Holiday,
it
what's that
is.
for her?
But I mean, just in general, I think we need to be mindful of those things so we're not repeating history
I'm
yet again. And I
I'm
think this movie was a. I think
that
it was
movie
a.
never happened in real life. I am mindful that all of them people would have been put in the dirt quickly.
And that you probably be telling the truth, but some people would be scared and
That's what I'm saying.
would
I would be
would
scared
bend.
while I'm putting somebody in the dirt. I would be very afraid. I would be
But
very
let's just hope.
unnerved
Let's just
and
hope and
all of
pray
those
that
things
slavery never
while
comes back,
I'm
so George
fighting
doesn't have a quick demise. Let's just hope it doesn't. Slavery in that terms never comes back. So we don't lose George in the struggle.
That's all
But
right.
our last
Oh,
film,
hey, I'm gonna go out proudly.
our last film that we're going to talk about was the United States versus Billie Holiday, and just to give, just not necessarily back history, but to give homage to the stories that already came out that showed different aspects of her life. The play was more of it. The play would uh, Andra
On the day.
McDowell uh, uh, more so studied the music and how her music was so impactful. Of course, the Lady Sings the Blues was
Mhm.
more so kind of a breeze over her life. It didn't really go into deep details, and I think it focused heavily on her transitions in her life. This movie, however, really focused on her as a political icon. It showed her as a not political, but an activist in
Mhm.
terms of using her talents to tell the story of the people who did not have a voice. And that's not how she started off, but ultimately I think and all three of these platforms, we saw the first movie, the play that was on Broadway, and this one, it all has that same theme. When she saw that first lynching, it started something in her, stirred something up in her that was not there before. Before, she was dealing with recovering from when she was raped, having to work in a brothel, and depending on what uh, book you read about her, her story is a little different. This story gives a different account of who her mother was. All the other story paints her mother as this Bible-toting, humble maid, whereas this story puts her mother in the whorehouse. And it's still not, we still don't know exactly where she's from because New York claims her, Philadelphia claims her, and Baltimore claims her. So we don't know exactly where she was born. It said that she was born in Baltimore. Many of the accounts, many people that knew her said she referenced herself from being from Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
in the Fells Point area. But this story also leads with that. But we learn, one, how tragic her story was. And it doesn't really focus on her early life as much as it does the last few years of her life. And it flashes back a couple times, but it tells the story of how um, J. Edgar Hoover and his whole Klansmen uh, yet again focused in on one person and made that person the enemy number one.
Mm-hmm.
And they, in this story, it shows how they use her drug addiction, um, which and many times we see that she recovered from, and that same individuals that then ratted her out or set her up went along and set her up, uh, put her back into that cycle of being an addict again.
Yeah.
This was an amazing movie for somebody who had never acted before, never been in a movie before. Um, it says a lot about what we need to do locally, in our arts and culture scene, in terms of casting, in terms of what we're promoting, what we're pulling out. We got to stop looking at these pretty faces as uh, our means in the black community to get above. So we keep putting these pretty faces in spaces, or typecasting in spaces where this, I'm thinking of who she could play next. Eartha Kitt, uh, definitely, because she did a phenomenal job as Billie Holiday. That was just my it was just heartbreaking yet again, already knowing her story, but to see it done this well. And let's give a little round of applause, a lot of applause and respect to what is her name, the writer of this, Susie Laurie Parks,
Mm-hmm.
for writing this. If you don't know who Susie Laurie Parks is, she is a playwright. She her last huge project, things like Top Dog, Underdog, is things that she's known for. But she did a phenomenal project called 365 Plays in 365 Days, and
Mm-hmm.
when I learned that she wrote this, that made me want to watch this because I knew that there was going to be an authentic script for all these characters to build off of. It's not that I don't respect Lee Daniels, but I wouldn't trust him to write a story about Billie Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this was hands down, and she just won a Golden Globe, the second woman to ever win for lead actress.
Very well
Uh,
deserved.
and in 78 years, only two actresses ever won starring role,
The best actress,
best
Golden Globe.
actress Golden Globe.
Mm-hmm.
Last being For the Color Purple, Whoopi Goldberg, which is crazy because you telling me nothing was up to that caliber in between, even it's the last 20 years, but nothing in
There's been
78
a whole
years.
lot up to that caliber. Like,
I'm saying that, but I'm saying
yeah.
like, and one of the reasons I always preach we need to be begin our last show. One of the reasons we got to start building our own. because it becomes a
I think
politics
those
issue.
things. I think that those things are in progress, but we also can't just wait. We
What are
can't.
we waiting on? I
We
don't want
can't
us to
just.
wait. We can
Huh?
start it now.
No, 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 no. But
I'm
there's still
willing
that
to
takes
listen.
times to build up. Like you can say that today, it doesn't mean that you have your own little Black Hollywood tomorrow. And while those things are being built, because they are being built, like they are most definitely being built. Like we have more Black folks in key positions, Black studios, Black production companies than we've ever had. So
Hmm.
though that foundation, that groundwork, the work is being done, right? Like we tend to a lot of us. So Nate, I know that you know that that work is being done here
Hmm.
and there, and then at some point, all of those things will coalesce. Most people don't realize it until the fully formed vision is
And
there,
and when I
and
speak
the fully
about it,
formed vision is going to take a like it's going to take a while, right?
but
Like, and that's
I don't
fine.
think it should have to. I don't think it needs to take a while. I'll say it like that.
I
And
think it absolutely needs to take a
it
while.
doesn't. It didn't take them a while when they somebody decided. You know what,
It
we're going
actually
to.
did. It
But
actually
it
did
didn't.
take them a
It
while.
didn't though. It didn't because it was prestigious from
Yeah, like Hollywood didn't
19.
pop up overnight, Nate. Like it absolutely took them a while to build up
But
their
it's but
institution.
we're but see, and I think that's our problem. We waiting for everything to be perfectly put into place.
No,
The work,
no one's waiting
the
for
work needs
anything.
to
I'm
be
saying
done
that the work is
now.
being done. Rome wasn't built in a day, and in the
And
meantime,
I'm
we
not
still have
oblivious
to
to that
work. That's
though,
all I'm
George.
saying, yo.
I'm
Like the
not
work is
oblivious to
being
that,
done.
but the bulk of the work is being done by 5 people right now. And I think we all need to then play
Mm,
our part in one, supporting the work that is being done right now,
I don't know
two,
if I.
figuring out what we can as individuals do to support that moving forward and not just wait, sit and twiddle our thumbs
Why do
and
you
get
think the
paid
work
over
is being
there
done by 5 people?
because it is being
Because
done
there's
by
five
five
people in
people.
the limelight.
No, I don't think
Tyler
that.
Perry, Oprah, Lee Daniels,
No, I
Byron
don't even
Allen.
count
Like
them.
it's like
I
five or
don't.
six people in the
But
spotlight.
I don't. But the work isn't on that level. The work is happening in our local theater communities, our local arts community. That's where the work. By the time it gets to their level, it's just about writing a paycheck. That's all it consists
That's
of.
what's needed.
No, that's the money is I'm not gonna say it's not needed, but the work that needs to be done needs to happen on this level. And because if we get to that level, once we get to that level and we don't have
About yo,
any of
like
the
community,
foundation being
like
built,
like
it's not going we need to
local
work
level
on.
theater been popping, Nate. What are you talking about? You acting like the arena players popped up yesterday. The arena players has been around for like what 80 years.
I didn't say
The
nothing was a
Chitlin
step.
circuit,
But
like
listen to what
the local
but
scene,
listen to what I'm
the
saying though,
talent is
George.
there.
Don't defer what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying we don't have anything established, but in terms of us being a unified force, and not everybody is going to agree, not everybody's going to work well together, but having a unified thought, like this is what we need to do. So in Baltimore, if we get these things accomplished, meaning Arena Players has been here forever. It's the longest continuously operating community theater in the United States. We know that. But what does it have to show for that legacy, for that long term? Well, if you go down there today compared to if you went down there 10 years ago, it's a ghost town today. Not to disrespect Arena Players, but it is. You know, how often do we go and see shows there, participate in shows there, support and help develop shows there?
You
You
sure
know,
it's not a ghost
but
town because of COVID?
say it again.
It wasn't a ghost town when Pearly was in production.
It definitely was a ghost town.
You feel like it was a ghost
10
town when
years
Pearly was in
ago,
production?
when I started going down to the Arena Players when I was 22, 23, there was always something going on. Now it's not, it's whatever the project is. That's what's going on there. You know, it's the youth theater was buzzing. You know, the youth theater turned out so many phenomenal artists. And I'm not just gonna pick
Absolutely.
on Arena Players, I'm saying in general. And a lot of our projects, and we have a lot of new things that are popping up, but it's a cliquish thing right now within our black arts community. Or we have it where I'm gonna only do stuff over here with the white theaters, and I'm not, because they don't really have it together over there. I'm gonna wait till they get it together, or when something big is happening, that's when I'm gonna go and
Mm-hmm.
see it. You know, and I'm not complaining. I'm more so pointing out the fact that we're disjointed in our efforts. You know, in the time where there was a Billie Holiday, they needed each other. It was an absolute need for each other, and they fulfilled that need. So many people helped Billie Holiday out. Many people hurt her, but at the same time, that community of artists, they helped each other. The Harlem Renaissance, that was about all of them saying, hey, I do this great, you do this great, you let's come together and build something in terms of something that will have legacy. And that's how we got the Harlem Renaissance. That was a bunch of artists working in conjunction across the United States, even, you know, across the world, even building art and
Mm-hmm.
creating art. And we have that establishment. We have the talent, we have the energy, we even have the money. It's just now us getting together on one accord for a single purpose and building our own. So we're not relying on, you know, institutions or things that are 70, 80s, 100 plus years old that don't want us and only include us when there's a bottom line to be fulfilled, or when there is a specific agenda for us to be there. That's all. I understand we already are established. I understand we already have things, and I understand things take time. But we already have all the elements. I heard somebody today say, as African Americans, we have everything that we need to have our own. And I'm just tired of us looking at these award shows every season and getting angry because enough of us didn't win, or enough of us wasn't even nominated, or the five of us that are included, maybe two of them walk away with great awards,
Mm-hmm.
or it takes somebody passing away for them to show homage or honor to that person. I'm at that point. I'm not even at a point of being angry or frustrated anymore. I want progress. I want us to progress, and not for the sake of us getting grants and getting our individual accolades. But we got to start thinking about community again, because the way it's looking, we're not going to have much to go by the longer we do this. It's still going to be black theater, black art going on, but we would be so much powerful if we actually work together. However, this film, I just think it showed excellence. And this whole year, actually, I've just seen a level of excellence from us that was in pockets before. It was in pockets. And I think, to know that she wasn't even who Lee Daniels wanted for this. He didn't even want to audition her for this.
Apparently, he didn't even want to do it.
He wanted to do the story,
I
but
don't
he
think
didn't want her in the
I
story.
was reading something that I like. He didn't want to. He really didn't want to direct the film. She didn't think she was the right actress for the film.
Hmm.
He did. He may not have thought that she was
He
initially
said
the right
he
actress
said he
for the
didn't
film.
even
Uh,
somebody had to beg him to audition her. And
and
she just didn't think she would be able to do it justice, being as though there's been two other
And I
great
think maybe
actresses
that's what it
who did
was.
the
I
story.
think they like after reading that article, I realized that there may have been like a serious humbleness that they brought to a delicacy
On
in
her
telling
behalf.
the story on both of their behalf. I don't know what your
No, I
issue
don't
with
think
Lee
it was
Daniels
from him.
is, but yeah, right, you're a
Uh-uh.
Lee Daniels hater. You just sat here
I'm
and
not
talked
a
about how we
hater.
need to come together, but you got all
I'm
these
not.
issues that you want to talk
But
about with Lee Daniels.
I have an opinion of people that's obvious. There's an interview that happens. So if you watch this on Hulu, there's an interview that happens directly
Yeah,
after this.
I saw it, Nate.
No,
I think
but I'm not. I'm
you did a
speaking
little.
to the people who are watching. I'm not
Uh,
talking to you. So, so there's an interview that happens, and I don't. I'm not saying I don't want him to create. It's just I saw the fact that you didn't even. The problem that I saw in him casting her is a problem that I see on a local level. If you don't look the part, if you don't have a big enough name or a big enough following, or if I don't think you important enough, I don't want to even work with you. And I saw that come out of the interview in him even looking at her. This young lady looking at her is Billie Holiday.
That's
If you've ever listened to any of her
so
music,
this
this
is
is Billie
interesting.
Holiday.
I didn't walk away from that. I didn't walk away from those comments with the same. Like I just had a different take on it. Like maybe you reading too much into it. Maybe he just
No,
didn't think she was right for the role, and
no,
it's
but
okay to
I
be
see
wrong
that
about that. Like
it's
it's
okay for
okay
him
to
to
be
be
wrong about
wrong.
that, but don't like isn't that a director's job
To do what?
to figure out who's right for the role?
Yeah, but when you already come
And
to it with a
consider the
certain
fact that
bias,
when you make the
when you
decision
come
of
to
who
it
you're
with a
going to go with,
bias,
but hold on, when you make the decision to who you're going to pick, who you're going to select for the role, you've also not selected hundreds, possibly thousands of other
and that's
applicants.
I'm not saying he should have known that
That's the
she was the
director's
right
job.
person, but I'm saying I'm not saying that he should have known that this because it's not often the director's job because often on something this level it's not the
Yeah, it's
director
a
that's making
casting
that choice.
director's job, but
But I'm saying
typically
in
those
terms
directors have
of
input on that.
But in terms of uh you even looking at somebody as a possibility,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of that within our community, we already go through that when we're on a commercial level trying to be seen and trying to get our foot in the door. But for you to sit on an interview and say, I didn't even want her. She
Why would
wasn't
you
even on my
not?
radar.
Why would you not? Why like what do you think? Like, what do you think that says about a person when they can honestly admit that
I wouldn't it's
they
not
were
about
wrong?
honestly admitting, but in that atmosphere, it's not you've seen the job. So that would have been the moment for him to say, look, I was wrong. I was dead wrong. Uh I should have given you opportunity. Somebody had to give him the opportunity or tell him. I think it was somebody that was probably over him that said, you're gonna look at her. And
Mhm.
once he saw her performance, he saw this is the young lady I wanted. But I'm speaking in terms of just how we network and how we work together anyway. For him not to, that means he didn't even take a look at her work prior to this to say, oh, wait, she might be.
Mhm.
Because I got him casting somebody who wouldn't have been even a singer or wouldn't even have had that respect for Billie Holiday. But
Why do you think
ultimately,
that?
you said what?
Why do you think that?
Just in past interviews that I've watched from him, uh, knowing that he doesn't like for people to tell him what to do, just that arrogance that I see from
Most
him.
directors don't. I don't think I've ever worked with a director that like people telling them what to do.
If you work with a good director who's willing to listen, most a good director listens. A bad director is in tune with what they want. And not really caring what anybody else wants. The young lady worked Billie Holiday and could sing. Yeah, she's definitely her. She's entertaining
Phenomenal
her.
performance.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised when um I realized that like he initially didn't want
Hmm.
her for the role.
And that
Uh,
she didn't feel confident doing it.
well, I get that as an actor, I totally get that part. Like that part didn't surprise me
Hmm.
because there are legends in our community, and I
Hmm.
think that I feel like if you could ask Denzel, right? And Denzel would have probably said, like I had serious doubts about playing Malcolm X at one point or another. Like at
Hmm.
some point, he may have had doubts about that. Not because, oh, I don't think me, Denzel Washington, is capable of doing this. However, this is someone who it's like if I get this wrong, like it
Hmm.
can have far-reaching implications, right? Like I
I
think when
think
you're dealing with
I think she was looking at the other two performances and
Mhm.
comparing herself to who those two ladies are. Andrew McDowell is a phenomenal Broadway actress,
Right,
and
right, and
then
then Diana
Lady
Ross.
was Diana Ross. So I
So,
think she was looking at
right, and
when
then
she
there's
made
that
her
legacy
career.
on top of that. You know what I
Right?
mean? Like it's like anybody trying to play Malcolm X right now. Like you're following Denzel, you're following
Yeah,
Melvin Van Peebles. I mean Marvin
yeah,
Van Peebles. You're following like there's some heavy hitters that have taken on that role.
right.
And like so, like if they were making some type of film now, like I always have respect for these cats, these like unsung cats. I thought, like there's been some great portrayals of him, and like I get that part. but the film
It was
itself was
great to see her
phenomenal.
do a great job,
I was
though.
so, like it never ceases to, no matter, like now I think this is the worst that I've seen recently, but like white cruelty just seems to know no bounds. Like every time I think that's it, like that's the apex of
Well, I think,
authenticity. Then
I
something
think,
else comes along, and I'm just like, and I
yeah.
knew that Billie Holiday, like I knew that she had a lot of issues. She had a lot of issues with the government, like in and out of jail.
But we
But
see why, and this kind of
when
shows
you
us
when
her
you
record.
to watch it play out on their end, on like on the other side, and
Hmm.
to know that, and to watch that it was like this intentional effort to just destroy her.
Right. I
Like
think this story
that
showed that. It showed that because the lady sings the blues. It I think it played it safe and kept
mhm.
that storyline out of it. But this one, it was very raw and very direct.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we got to see faces and we
Mhm.
got to see dialogue
And we got
from that
names.
perspective. Right.
And Garrett Hudlin, it's on site, bro. When if I see you, it's on site for what you did. Like it was, even his performance, was,
Mhm.
it's that performance, right? Like he probably gonna have to stay out of black spaces for the next couple years for people who've
Mm,
seen the United States of Billie Holiday, because they're gonna be like, yo, like, ain't you
but
dude?
he was ultimately. I mean, but we
It was
just
just
went
one of
through
those
this.
roles. It was played really well.
Right, and I think we and I just on the other show that I'm on as well. We just had this conversation. It seems that we are seeing a couple different themes in a lot of the films and TV shows that we're seeing, and that character that he played seems to pop up throughout history, in terms
Mm,
of being the antagonist and or one of the antagonists, that in between person that is used
mhm,
to get to, you know, that person, and what are the effects of that and how historically uh accurate that is. But for many people it's just I'm trying to get ahead, I'm trying to get ahead, so ambition comes in. But then the idea of what the government used as the problem. So we're going to attack this as a drug issue, as they've done for many times throughout black history.
mhm,
They've used certain afflictions to then criminalize us. But in this, I was so happy to see the faces, the FBI agents, the those individuals. I was glad to hear the conversation actually be held in a space, and that's Susie Laurie Parks all day long.
mhm.
She a lot of her work speaks directly to
Yeah.
um, what is wrong and what is actually wrong, not the painted picture, but the picture that's was painted over.
Mhm,
Uh, and I was just happy to see that level of honesty. That's why watching these two films back to back, to me, it was it brought out a anger that I've had for a very long time, being as though the spaces that I've had to be a part of, the spaces I've chosen to be a part of, and seeing how we are treated from the inside and the outside,
mhm,
and we expect for these people to achieve and don't realize we are constantly erasing the line and redrawing the line in the sand, or pulling the rug from underneath people, expecting them to win and achieve at those type of odds.
mhm.
And her story became that much more poignant to
And like
me.
the funny thing, the weird thing about it is that they do that, and they kind of like build their own. They almost like It's almost like they dig their own grave.
Right,
You know,
right,
I
right.
don't know. Like clearly, Strange Fruit was a very moving piece that um it probably definitely had an effect on people. But I
Yeah.
think they extrapolated that. Like
Mhm.
putting her through what they put her through, like the opposition to her singing that song. I think, amplified the
Yeah.
overall message of the song itself
But we
because
see
they
that
were doing
in so
so
many
much
artists
so
though.
blatantly
Yeah.
to shut it down.
And it
Um,
should really put a lot of us as black artists on point with our integrity. And where's your integrity? Because despite her going through these abusive relationships, being addicted to drugs on and off, struggling with her addiction rather,
mhm,
um, and then having to deal with racism, but on top of that, still having to deal with a justice system that was hell bent on breaking her,
mhm,
just breaking her. And we see that in Nina Simone's story. We see that in somewhat of the Josephine Baker story. And
mhm.
I hope she gets the role in playing Eartha Kitt as well, because we see that in the Eartha Kitt story. And I'm sticking to the women because we're celebrating Women's History Month, but I wanted, you know, to see these performers have to, knowingly know that I am purposely choosing this route. And I know in choosing this route, I am not going to be the wealthiest. I'm not going to be the most entertaining. I'm going to be the most controversial. I'm going to have the most stones thrown at me, but
Mhm.
still it was just the lynching. And I remember that from the first movie, seeing, her watch the lynching for the first time, and it does something to me. So
Was she a
go ahead.
child when that happened? Because in the movie there was a sequence where she kind of stumbles upon a lynching,
Yeah,
and but then it was also, I wasn't sure if that was it. It was a part of like this dream like montage that I
it
wasn't
was
really sure.
earlier.
Like
She
you're
was
not really
young.
sure what is reality and what is.
It was. I think because we're looking at it from the first Billie Holiday story, so we see it. But she was a younger
Okay.
performer. She was just that was her first time ever going on tour.
Mhm.
So that was,
So that
I
actually
think
happened, like
right.
where
So
the bus stops for them to use the bathroom
right.
in the South, and they come upon a
That's
lynching.
right. That's one in all of the stories that were written about her life that she was interviewed for, because she never wrote the books herself. It was always somebody interviewed her. That
Mhm.
was always a consistent story, that while on her first tour, she stumbled upon a
Okay.
lynching.
Okay. And that's what I kind of figured. It the way that that composition came together in this movie, it
Yeah,
was a little ambiguous as to like what was
how
reality,
old she
what was
was, or
induced, right? What was like the dream state. But
well,
I kind of
that's because she was high. Her and
right, no,
the
yeah,
FBI
no,
agent had
I
gotten
understood
high.
it. I was just like,
Right.
what? It was hard to separate what was like reality versus what else was like an emotional kind of.
It was
So
a
it's just good
flashback,
to
so to
know.
speak.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought, and
yeah,
that's what I took from it. I was like, okay, they're mixing it, but
right.
this is actually like an actual
And
flashback.
I think that was dope the way they and again, a lot of stuff with Billie Holiday, it's is accusation, because they always accuse her of always being so high that, she needed the money, so that's why she told this story. So this particular version of the story, that Susie Lloyd Parks adapted, again, it was one of those times where nothing in the book was real,
Mhm,
and she was high and drunk the whole time, but she was telling her story. Even a drunk mind will tell you 100% truth. It's like you say, a lot of the filter looks off and
mhm,
distorted. But if you listen to the story as this one so vividly did, it was so gut wrenching. And I'm glad that it was done in 2021 again. It's one of them stories that I'm glad they did a remake of it. I wouldn't even call it a remake. They told a different story,
mhm.
because it was so honest. A lot of our stories don't have a lot of honesty in it, because we think we have to fill it up with spectacle and imagery and
Right,
and
or we have an issue
glitz and
with,
glam.
or we have
Right.
an issue with, um,
What the truth is.
with the negative aspects of the
Right.
characters.
Because
Like, you know what I mean?
nobody
Like,
ever looked at her as a civil rights leader. Nobody ever looked at her that way. That wasn't ever a description that Billie Holiday was giving. Outside of that one song, and she had a couple different songs like that, but most of her songs were about uh, women's rights, black rights, and but that one particular song kind of catapulted her and pulled her down at the same time. But we don't realize the struggle she had. You know,
right. Well, I
that
mean,
one
I
scene
don't
with the
think they.
police in the back was that was
I think
crazy to
they
me.
struggle of all the really human aspects of some of our more renowned figures, and I
Yeah.
think that's why it's hard to be truthful in these films because we prefer them to be perfect and untarnished,
Mm-hmm.
right? Billie Holiday, like you said, I don't think she's really spoken of thought as like a civil rights leader.
Because we
Although
see the
she's very
addiction. We see the addiction. We
much,
don't.
no, and I don't even think it has anything to do with that. I mean, I think that so to give a comparison, I don't think anybody would think of Marvin Gaye as a civil rights leader, and yet we know that Marvin Gaye produced and made music that was very much in line and step, and inspired a
Mhm.
lot of. So this Strange Fruit
Right.
was like on the front end of that. Like Marvin Gaye came much later. Strange Fruit
But
was a
she
song
wasn't
that
even
was
the
very
first
much.
person to sing it. She wasn't even the first person. That song wasn't hers. She made it hers. It was given to her, and now she's in the Grammy Hall of Fame for that song.
Mhm,
But nobody else was courageous enough to sing the song. And now we're realizing that they were up against um, the justice system,
mhm,
shutting them down. You know, at that time you had to have a cabaret license. So for her to lose her cabaret license in her city, in the biggest city at that time, New York City,
right.
that was detrimental to her, but she still figured ways to work it out. She did larger venues. Uh she worked a lot in the DMV and Pennsylvania, Philly area. Places that didn't require for you to have a license to perform.
Mhm,
So she made her way around it. And it was just heartbreaking. Even on the domestic violence side of it, it was us being in the midst of Women's History Month. It said a lot about what women were willing to deal with to feel safe and to feel protected. That on the other flip side was heartbreaking to me because
yeah,
finally,
this was not a film. This was not a good look for us men at
um,
all.
it
At all.
wasn't, it wasn't, but understanding that we all are faced with decisions in life, and our choices and our decisions that we make are based on our experiences. So even not justifying black men, but we're all are victims of our circumstances or our environments, and we don't have to be, but
Mhm,
many of us have chosen to maintain that. I'm of my surroundings. And greed. That's a theme that I'm noticing in a lot of these films too. How greed will make us make or greed forces us to make decisions that are long term not healthy for us.
right.
Even the short term is not healthy for us. And then we see a lot of the men
Yeah,
use
when you
her,
coming
abuse
from
her,
constant neglect and want, and when you come
need.
from a place of need and not having
Hmm.
basic needs met, yeah, like you view the world differently.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and then when you couple that with it being generational, which means that not only are you dealing with these, but then what you have typically what you're seeing as a child is
Right.
supporting that narrative. So it
Miss
becomes
Meekins. Miss Meekins said, "I wish the schools would explain the songs and the lynchings." The people who need to hear it, parents and administration would never let them hear it. The people who have an idea, uh, is almost as if it's a shame attached to it. So it wouldn't. It. it hurts me every time I hear someone say, "I don't want to see another slave movie." But that's somebody's story, even though it may be a dramatization of it or exploited version of it. That's still somebody's story that died for you to have the freedom to be able to say those things. And just to, even to you, George, or to anybody that knows me, my energy is coming from a place of me tired of hearing us say certain things. I know I've sacrificed a lot in my own artistry, especially in the last like 5 or 6 years, in that I could be a lot further. I could get grants, I could get certain opportunities, but I've seen how white people treat us. I've been in a boardroom because I look safe to people. I've heard how people talk about us, and I'm sitting right there because
Mhm.
I'm safe to them. I hear how they're talking about us. Even the ones who sympathize with us, quote unquote, sympathize with us, I hear how they talk to us. When it comes down to me and them, and it's a choice, they'll always choose themselves. And that's a historical, that's something that's in our DNA. And it's something that as black people, we have to get really uncomfortable with being around, not just being around white people in general, but putting all of our hopes and dreams in their hands and being comfortable with being the only one or two black people that's achieving because we are playing the game.
Mhm.
I can no longer, and it sometimes seems a little off my perspective, but I had to choose. I couldn't play the game anymore. I can't play that game. Even, I can't play that game with us anymore. So I damn sure
I
can't
mean,
play
like
that
I can
game.
understand, Nate, like based off of your experience, I can completely understand why you
Mhm,
would get tired of playing that game. I think that any black person that plays that particular, we
mhm,
all have to play the game to play the game that particular way.
right.
Because I've had the complete opposite experience,
Mhm,
and I don't know. I mean, like from my outward appearance, I feel like I should look safe. White people can't say whatever the fuck they want around me. Not
mhm,
without my rebuttal. And like I don't feel like my rebuttal is gonna
mhm,
is a problem. Like if that's your, like my interaction with white people has always been, you know, like deep in low key, I think with like deep down inside of me, I think what you just said, your perspective is some bullshit. But
mhm.
I'm confident that I can express that to you um without getting personal, I guess is the word, or losing my cool,
Right.
right? Like I have always expected certain things in certain areas, and I when I step into those spaces, I'm fully aware that that's probably going to happen, right? So I'm fully prepared to respond. Um So I don't know what white people say about us. I can theorize and I can listen from other people because whenever I've heard white people say some dumb shit concerning black people in
Mhm.
my presence, like I'm gonna address that. Like we about to have a
Yeah,
conversation.
and
So
and we have to be prepared for whatever that pushback is, not only from them,
mhm.
but the people that look like us. It becomes very detrimental to our. At some point, I started getting called difficult because I could not. It's not even the conversations that I was hearing was blatant racism, but it was soaked in racism, and then kind
No,
of like
microaggression. Yeah.
yeah, and it was the idea of be having conversations with people about being in the arts, or I'll hear you say something and it just is off to me, and when I present it to you as being off, it's well, you're just making it about race. It's not always about race. It's not always
Mhm.
and I know certain things, and we just had a conversation about animation. I know sometimes we do go to that card because we're used to having to go to that aspect, and some things look that way and may not be that way, but I do also know that our sympathizers, and that's what I'm choosing to call them, are still we're still born in that. They were still born in that idea of racism, and many of them are trying to fight that, and that's why they're doing so much and going so beyond with their initiative and with their support. But
Snatch
at the
their
end of the
snatch their
day,
ass out. Snatch their ass out.
yeah,
Snatch
I'm just,
their no
I'm
no no
just,
like seriously. Snatch their ass out. Let them know that like this little bit that you doing out of guilt, like don't give you a pass.
well, and that
It's
happened.
really not enough.
Mhm.
And just let the cards fall where they may.
And and we know that, and we hear that in the Billie Holiday story. We see that in many stories. When you make that choice, you got
Mm-hmm.
to be prepared to live that way, because there's always a black person that's going
In
to come to
certain
snatch that
in certain
opportunity.
situations, but you know what? I don't think that that's as common today, at
It's
least not in
very
the way
common.
that Billie Holiday experienced it.
N-
And I'm just gonna say,
well,
like, a lot of our ancestors had to endure that. Like, they have given us a great pedestal to which, right today, yo,
but
as a
it's
black
still
person, yo,
happening
like,
though.
unless it's still happening, because I don't think that a lot of people realize, a lot of black people don't realize the power that we really do have. I think that we
And I say that
simultaneously
all the
see
time.
it. I think that we simultaneously see it, but we've also been conditioned to doubt it.
And
And
to
I think that that's
survive.
something that we have to work out. And that's my ultimate point when I talk about these things being in progress. Like, I understand that things do take time. As much as I want things to turn around like that for our people, I know that in real life these things are a
But
process,
for you,
right?
for so, and right now, and I'll say, for you to be able to articulate that, for
Mm-hmm.
me to be aware of it and to be able to articulate it, for all of us to be able to see it happening,
Mm-hmm.
and we just go continue working over here, and whatever that
But
is,
that's
that's
not. But that's the thing, yo. Like, that's not really the full picture.
it's not, but it's
So
still
so
a part
so
of it
so
though. It's
so
still a part of it.
you might see it. It is a part of it. I'm not denying that. But that is not the full picture. And realistically, yo, like, as every black person I think has to just decide, like, where do you want to be? Do you want to be on the side where you constantly focused on what's not right? Or do you want to just come over here? Like, if you want to come over on this side and just work on
But
fixing
it's
the problem.
but the see, I'm not on, because obviously I've just decided that I'm gonna pave my own way to
All
where
right, so
I feel success is.
you're gonna
But
be a
at the
part of the
same
solution.
time, but I've had to choose to be on my own, not even to choose a side, but to simply be on my own at
Mhm.
this moment. Because even on the side of the solution, there's a lot of things that I don't like that I'm seeing.
But but see, yo, like, you mentioned this earlier, right? A lot of black people feel like all the T's got to be crossed, all the I's got to be dotted, and everything got to be perfect for me. And it sounds like you might be a little bit on that wagon as well.
No,
I don't think that
it's
there's
not, because I
any.
wouldn't be doing all this if that was the case.
Well, I
For
don't think.
me,
Well, let me ask you
it's not
this.
about perfection.
It,
It's about solidarity. It's
all
about
I'm saying is that it's
inter
not
self
perfect.
respect.
No, all I'm saying is that no path is
It's not. But
perfect,
even
and
in
all of
imperfection,
them.
there has to be respect. And I'm seeing a slight diminish
Mhm.
of respect amongst us, because it's becoming about and I have to get mine and you gotta get yours. There's a competition amongst us that is not our fault. None of this is our fault. It's
Mhm.
what we've been put in, the system that we've put in, and we're
Well, what
working
if
our way out of.
what do you think about, like, what if it's not as personal as you making it out to be?
Well, it
Like,
is
what if I mean,
personal.
like, competition breeds success. Like, there's nothing wrong with competition.
It's nothing wrong with competition.
It's really
But
just a balance.
when I'm willing
We
to,
should be able to be competitive, but
we
then
should
also
be.
be able to be collaborative
But
when the car.
competitive is a whole nother. That's when it's positive. When it's competitive, and I know competitive
Mhm.
competition, but when it's competition, it almost feels as if we're fighting for that spot.
Mhm.
and not competing like, oh, you got this one, man. Let me
Well,
dust myself
let me
off
ask
and
you
get
this.
that.
Do you think that maybe that's just a byproduct of the fact that for those who like who have chosen to go it alone, right? Like I'm gonna do my own thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then I think that when you put yourself in that particular space, you're all fighting for a very, very not a very, very small, but you're all fighting for the same. Like you're
But
essentially you're
it's room
competing for the
for
same
but the
resources.
idea and something I keep saying because I go at things independently, but I'm always looking for an excuse to bring somebody along. I could have did this show by myself,
Mm-hmm.
but what is a conversation when you're having it by
By
yourself?
yourself, right?
It's it doesn't there's no shared experience. There's no
Mm-hmm.
growth that really happens. There's nothing really learned from that situation because we know each other, but we're learning each other in a different aspect. And we realizing even with the differences, there's so many things that we've done that were similar, so many accomplishments that we
Yeah.
had that were along the same vein. But we again, a lot of us are so competitive and so filled with that energy that we don't even see each other. We don't see that it's room for all of us. It's not a small amount. It's not that. It's
Mm-hmm.
room for all of us to achieve. Look at the other side. Look at the other cultures. It's they succeed on every different level. But for us, it's always this small window of opportunity for one or two of us to be able to fit through a time. We grew up thinking it was only possible to be one Oprah and one XYZ and one Michael Jordan and one, but it's room for all of us to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you? But you don't have to cut down my success in order for yours to be higher. It's room for, and that's the part of where we are right
So
now.
that's the issue that you're saying is that you think that there's a lot of cutting down of
It's a lot
each
of
other.
cutting down, and it's been said, and I'm starting to hear it said so much now. This crab in a barrel mentality, the fact that we weren't crabs don't belong in a barrel. They belong in the sea where there's vast space for
Mm-hmm.
all of them. So the fact that you then put them in a barrel, they have no choice but to fight. And I think we're at 2021, we should be aware that we're being put into barrels to only entertain other people and watch that pulling down of each other. That's that's
Mm-hmm.
where that's where I'm coming from. So let's focus on how we can, every time I work with somebody, I ask them, what is it that you want? So while we're building this thing that I may have created or we created, I'm making sure that you're getting out of this what you need. And it's not just me achieving. But
Mm-hmm.
me personally, I've seen that happen before. I'm not saying it's nobody else does that because
Yeah.
I'm here because of that. But at the same time, it's so much marketing right now that's teaching me how to be so independent and self-sufficient that I don't need community anymore. And when we do have community, it's really only one person that's really succeeding, and everybody else is just learning a lesson along the way. And
Hmm.
that's it's bigger. This world is so much bigger than that small window of opportunity. It's so much bigger
So
than
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm trying to think of like examples, but we might have to table this conversation and come back to it.
that. Mhm.
Um, and maybe we can have a whole conversation where we just talk about, like the black experience in entertainment, or like we can really sit down and chop it up about this specific issue.
Mhm.
Um,
It's I mean it's definitely a conversation that and honestly anybody that's listening tonight, that's really what this platform is for. We talk about films and TVs and movies, but the conversation becomes a little bit deeper. A
mhm.
friend of mine listened to the show I let him listen to the show that we taped the other night, and
Yeah.
it was more so he was like, "How did you find controversy in those films? Like, what was the But we dig deep in the dialogue that comes from those films. We start seeing things like he was amazed that we drew out the relationship between the mother and the son from Waiting to Exhale. Like that was such a small part of that movie, but us being black men, what else are we looking at? I'm not looking at the sex scenes and getting nothing out of it, but that relationship is what I took from that. That film, and it was crazy that you saw the same thing, but at the same time, this platform, I want to start those conversations, and then try to, at some point, build on with actions some solutions. I don't want to just keep talking about, we talking about old films and TV shows and eventually plays, but I want to actually create dialogue that can promote action, that does promote action within all of this. But as we're drawing to a close, because this was only supposed to be an hour, a bonus episode, and we just created a whole nother episode. But thank you to everybody that's been listening. Mr. Khalil says Nate Cowser. Oh, come on, don't put my whole government out. As always.
Yeah, yo, definitely did.
And right, and I'm actually tired of people giving power to the process, but not putting one hand to the plow. I don't know what I was looking at. Yeah, I agree with that, sir. This is another gentleman that I want to bring on the show because he has a George type of perspective in life. Guys, I have to go.
What
You got a
George type
date?
of perspective? Hold on, time out. What's a G. Oliver type of perspective? See, yo, like this is why our episodes
I'm not
be
putting
so
it down.
long. I didn't say you was. But I
just
don't
saying
know
he
what that
said
means.
your
I didn't say you was putting me down. I'm saying that I need a little bit more explanation. Like, what is a G. Oliver type of perspective? Because he just gave you all the points. He said you was the one that had all the points on this one.
Come back next week, and we're going to.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come back next week. We're gonna have to discuss some things.
New episodes every Tuesday. We got a episode that's dropping tomorrow, actually, with the illustrious Tracy Jiggets, and we talk about some really interesting films that kind of sparked a little bit of controversy in the conversation. But continue to watch, continue to share. We're going to
tomorrow at 3 p.m., right?
3 p.m. sharp. It's already been uploaded.
Today
it's already
at
ready.
3 p.m.
Well, today at 3
Today
p.m.
at 3 p.m.
So I'm really excited. We did this live because we wanted to reach out to you. So thank you to everybody that's been commenting. Please share.
Live because Nate was distraught. He watched them two movies back to back, and he ain't know what to do with himself. He was like, "Yo, like
I purposely don't watch certain things, and I space out what I do watch because." As Black people, we can really stress ourselves out watching a lot of this stuff because it's stuff that already make us angry. It does. So with all of this stuff coming out back to back,
that's why I understand people when they say, "Look, I can't do another slave movie. I can't do another civil rights movie. I can't do another." What they're really saying is, I can't watch us suffer on screen anymore. But I don't think that. The people who take that position, I don't think what they're saying is like they're being dismissive of another Black person's story. It's the violence. It's like I can't take no more violence towards people who look like me.
We can no longer
and then it's senseless. It's senseless violence. It's such hatred. And I think that moves people in a different way. Like we can watch Arnold Schwarzenegger blow commandos away, Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes. Like we watched all of that and never batted an eye. But when we watch these films, we know that they're
recognizing and continuing to tell the story like other races do. Asians.
But other races are not the subject of what we've been subjected to. Like let's be honest, yo. Like, yeah, you can make some films about the Holocaust. You can make films about, there's a show on Netflix right now about the warring clans in Japan. It doesn't really hold up to the 400 plus years of just general dehumanizing mistreatment that our people have gone through. It really doesn't. And quite frankly, I can think of a handful of movies about the Holocaust. I can think of like one or two films about Japanese internment, couple films about other groups like, the gangs of New York, right? Like what the Irish settlers went through when they came to America en masse, right? Um, but there's usually like a handful of films, right? That's like then they just
Yeah,
go
but
off, and
they still
it's
give
usually
their
like for
history.
us, it's like it's a lot. It's
It's
a
a
lot.
lot. It's a lot.
And
It's
then
a
we went
lot.
through this period where it was like that was all they were producing. It was like
But in
either we were
comparison,
slaves or the help.
as you just said, in comparison to the other cultures who have dealt with levels of slavery or levels of discrimination, our story is still a lot, and we haven't really dealt with but the surface of it.
And I don't think so. I don't. I
But
don't
I
think.
think
I
in
don't. I
us,
don't think that a lot of people can handle going any deeper.
but I
Like
think
I
that's the
think that
only
there's so
way that
those of
we're
us who can. I think there's those of us who can, and we will be there to make sure that those legacies are heard,
right,
are seen,
and that's what's
that
happening right
they're
now.
respected. But I really can't
But
blame
understand.
anyone who
It's and I'm not
takes
blaming
that
anyone, but
position.
just understand that as people wake up to our history, and I don't like that woke term, but as many of us begin to wake up and we see stuff like somebody's going to watch this story who never thought about a Billie Holiday, who never thought about uh, the war on drugs throughout history, and look at it differently, and that's going to spark them to do research and then create action and then
Mm-hmm.
create activism, and then they're going to activate. Like, that's why these stories need to be told. You don't have to watch every single one of them, but I
Mm-hmm.
think we have to continue to continuously educate ourselves on what these stories are, who these people are, our connection to them, and understand it, so the respect level goes down. I'm starting to see the respect level for our history turn into shame and then hatred of our own stories. That's what I'm starting to see.
So that's a
And me
topic
being in the
for
classroom.
another day.
So this was a bonus episode. Thank you to everybody that was tuned in and was watching. Uh, we hopefully we get to do this a little bit more. We want to start being more live with you all and being more interactive with you all. But
Not
you
for
got to
two
come on
hours.
out. You got to come on out in droves. You got to come on out. Please follow us on our YouTube page at www.youtube.com/C/the Artist Exchange. And you can watch all of the first season. You can watch the second season as is unfolding right now in real time. But thank you for tuning in. I know it was a late night. Go get some rest. Get up. Get to work and understand that the coronavirus is real. Be safe out there. Socially distance, respect, and do what you gotta do. Peace
See
out.
y'all next week.